This is episode 11 of Objectively Biased. What is going on, everybody? This is Wilder Adams alongside John Tortorelli and River Brown. What's going on, guys?
Feeling good, looking good. Happy to be here. Got some football this weekend. We watched a couple good games so far. We had a Commanders pretty much handling the Detroit Lions and stuff like that. Texans putting on the fight, but unfortunately could not get past the Chiefs. I just was watching Michigan State and Illinois game. Funny enough, we're about to do a mock draft, so I'm excited about that. But happy to be here. Donovan Mitchell outmeted Ant-Man last night. Just wanted to point that out. Yep.
I knew Riv was going to point that out. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Just
do
it.
We'll get him back. We'll get him in Cleveland next time.
Yeah, you got one more time because we only get to see each other twice.
Mitchell had a chance to just chill in Minneapolis and watch Anthony Edwards play in New York, drop 36, 13, and 7 the night before. So, you know what? Edwards walking in, getting 28 on a back-to-back. I'm not that mad about it. So
Right. On a road trip, you're due to have some schedule losses, as you highlighted before the show, because they played the night before in New York. I'm thrilled to be here. I could not be happier. I had a week off, I guess you could say, because I unfortunately had to spare myself by spending a weekend in Baltimore, Maryland. And it was actually a great weekend, but my football team definitely disappointed. So in the meantime, I could not be more excited for today's show. Got mock draft, we got a redraft, we got some good teams to talk about, and I love talking ball with you guys.
What are you doing in Baltimore?
I can't even say my team's name. I'm so disappointed in them. Everything.
Poorly.
I mean, the Bears try to make a trade call for Mike Tomlin. They would have likely given up a top 10 pick, and Pittsburgh said no because they gave Tomlin a no trade clause a year ago. I mean, I'm so disappointed in my Steelers. Matter of fact, I gotta get all these jerseys out of the background because they don't belong. They really don't.
You've been disappointed for like the last 8 years, dude.
My entire life.
Yeah. Should be used to it.
Baltimore is literally, I've had the weirdest experience in Baltimore versus any other city in the country outside of Oklahoma City. Like Baltimore, every time I'm there, something weird happens. So
how many times have you been to Baltimore?
Been there twice. Both times. Strange.
Before.
Very strange. So I did DECA my freshman year in college, and I went to nationals. So I went to, the first time I landed in Baltimore, I just remember going to my hotel room, and I go up the stairs, and then I look outside. People call it the second most dangerous city in the country behind St. Louis. And the first thing I see as I look out at the view is a pickup truck driving down the sidewalk and 3 cops chasing that car barefoot.
The cops are barefoot.
Like there were cops running at this pickup truck going.
But the cops didn't have shoes on.
Like they were, I don't know if they had shoes. I was like,
you mean on foot or barefoot?
Stories up.
I was gonna say the barefoot chase would be quite the spectacle.
No, it was weird. And then I just remember like going to like was it Six Flags the next time? And I just remember like watching, like I saw 5 kids run out with stuff, and they were literally like, you can rob that place so easily. We just stole everything and they didn't care. I'm like, that's a good sign. So I don't know, something about Baltimore, but I think that's a good way to start with the show. So, like John alliterated, he mentioned we have a 2025 NBA mock draft 2.0, and we also have a 2020 NBA redraft. We're going to go backwards from 2020 and down, and then we are going to rank our top 5 contenders. So, all right, John, you want to get the graphic up, and we can start looking at the possibilities?
Now, I do have one question for you guys. Why has Egor Demin fallen so much?
Oh, that's easy.
Easy.
Oh, that's easy. When he plays good competition, he tends to frizzle up. The lack of ball handling, what's the word I want to use? The lack of ball handling tricks seem to fade out when he's playing top defense. He looks shriveled. He looks out of whack. Not the same scorer, not the same playmaker. Just 2 completely different players when he's playing against competition as opposed to playing against, the below average competition. So he's dropped tremendously. Ace Bailey has also dropped, but he's starting to get back in the fold.
He's playing better.
He's playing very well.
Games back to back, so he's starting to get back in the fold. But yeah, Trey Johnson is also another guy. Now I'm seeing his name that's dropped because of his lack of ability to get to the rim and a lot of contested jump shots. Kind of similar to a Jabari Smith profile if he was a 2-guard.
Or Devin Vassell, Cam Thomas.
Yeah, but Egor is just falling off a cliff. I still believe in his ability. I still think he's a lottery pick. But definitely went from like top 3 talks to like now he's like in the teens.
Right. His production is really kind of fallen off. He's at 28% from 3, which was, I think, when we talked about him back a month ago,
He was
the
nailing
biggest
them.
appeal at that size because he was just throwing threes and he's a 6'10" guard who can really pass. So
Yes, and that's why I
like a
never
smart
believed
call.
in him being a point guard. I never thought the handles were advanced enough. I never thought he had a ton of wiggle. You know, he was still very loose with the ball, and they were very like the reads he were making were very. Not to say they weren't bad, they were just simple, like reads that he can make at a pro level, but nothing that
Right.
screamed primary ball handler.
Right.
Yeah, I thought with a jumper, if he's nailing 38+% of his threes, we are talking about somebody who would have gotten bigger Tyrese Halliburton comps. But without that jumper, it really diminishes his value because all those questions with the creativity and rim pressure, physicality, those are present. And I've heard some people say like he might be a 2026 draft guy, which I wouldn't rule out. I mean,
I don't hate it.
it could be a Jaden Ivey situation where maybe waiting one more year could really boost his stock. So plus him, plus AJ Devonsta.
I don't hate waiting.
point.
I never hated the wait another year. I thought a couple guys coming in who came out freshman years just because they got a promise that they'll go first round. I just don't, and I believe with NIL money now, you can wait another year. It's not like you're gonna lose out on, like, especially if you're a freshman. I feel like if you're a freshman, sophomore, you could wait. I understand if you're a junior or if you're a sophomore, you don't want to wait to that junior senior year. You kind of want to go out because you know the NBA is favorable to younger players with a little bit more potential. But I think waiting freshman to sophomore year, you know, coming out your sophomore year, I think that's a fine, especially if you want to refine your game and stuff like that. But I think now, like this class is much more deeper in terms of just the depth of talent that it has. So, you know, next year you're looking at 3 guys already that could potentially be lottery in Darren, Booz, and AJ. So if Egor stays another year, you play with AJ. You play with AJ. They have another guy, Kanan Catchings, who's really good on their team too, who's another potential guy that might stay. So I agree with you, Wilder. I don't think staying another year would hurt him at all. I think it might benefit him in the long run.
Totally. Yeah, a year of skill development because right now, physically, he's not going to be an impactful NBA player. He just won't be right away, and that's not a problem. He's a kid. So one more year. I hope we see more of this in college basketball when these really raw kids with talent, they can wait one more year and we can get more polished NBA players coming in. I think that's not a problem. I love the G League development, but I don't like how most rookies are in the G League either, like high draft pick rookies. So honestly, one more year you're making a few million in the NIL. I just with the NIL, there's less of an incentive to declare as a freshman if you don't need to. So, all right, let's get the 2025 mock draft going now.
Now, I think it's only right if I start at the first overall pick. Last time we went with James going 1 because he was
got one. You got
middle.
one.
You got one, John.
No, I didn't.
No, I'm saying you got one this time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I had the 3rd pick.
Wait,
Right?
why did you? No, you didn't. I had the 3rd pick.
I took Egor at pick 3.
No. Bro, I had the 3rd pick last time. You was like, Rib, you're going last. That's what you told me.
No, he's talking about
that was
the
not
redraft.
the mock. That was the redraft. The redraft we did, yeah, you were 3. The mock draft we did, I was 3. James was 1. You were 2. No, Riv was 1. Yeah,
redraft.
Riv got to pick. I remember he had an evil little grin when he wanted to take Dylan Harper, but he went with Cooper Flag.
I thought I did.
Yeah,
okay, fine. You could go 1. I'll go last.
Okay.
Okay, let's randomize the order. I just want a random team at the top. I'm sick of the Wizards or whatever having one.
Yeah, you can use. Yeah, there you go.
Sim lottery.
Sim lottery.
All right.
Toronto's at 2 now. Wow.
Here come the ping pong balls.
Every time I do this, the Spurs go up high. It's crazy.
Here we go.
Boom. Right, Toronto falls to 5, and Charlotte rises to number 1.
Let's do it.
Here we go. That makes my decision very easy here. because if you have LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, there's one thing that you can really add to Charlotte. It's a defensive do-it-all piece that offensively can also kind of be a jack-of-all-trades wing, someone that fills in pretty well Miles Bridges' spot. And maybe he doesn't have to be that go-to scorer day one. I think Cooper Flagg should be, if you're Charlotte here, the obvious pick, because I don't believe Dylan Harper alongside LaMelo would be the best way to kind of build out a defensive foundation. I think to start getting yourself in the fast track of being competitive, a la Orlando or Houston, you need to build a strong defensive kind of integrity. And Cooper Flagg, someone who has sky-high defensive potential, and he really reminds me of maybe a San Antonio Kawhi Leonard on that end of the floor. And I believe offensively, he has such a kind of well-rounded game. He can do a bit of everything to where he can kind of be a blank canvas for them while LaMelo and Brandon Miller develop. So that's going to be my selection here.
He's earned the number 1 pick lately. Dylan Harper at that time was the clear-cut best freshman. But recently, like last night had 28. He dropped 42 the other week. I think this year in January, he's averaging around 25 a game. And if he's defending that way at 18 years old and the offense is really coming together, there's really no dispute on who goes number 1, because we've seen guys like Paolo, Tatum, and Ingram play at Duke average 17. If this guy right here is a defensive-minded guy, younger than all of them, and he's averaging 19 a game, he's earned the number 1 pick. And I think some comparisons I love the Kawhi comp. I also think there's a little bit of KG there, a little bit of Scottie Pippen. So those are high comps, but he has that type of upside.
Oh, yeah. A+ pick, man. Listen, I agree with you. I think for me, Dill or Flagg can go 1. It's all team dependent. And I think with Charlotte having that number 1 pick, you easily take Flagg. You need to start building a defensive foundation in Charlotte. You kind of got your flashy offensive players. I think Cooper Flagg and LaMelo kind of fit perfectly with each other, along with Brandon Miller. You just at this moment you want to bring in talent, and I think you have a corner piece in Flagg and LaMelo with Brandon bringing up the helm. That's something to build off of. Something really strong to build off of.
Now
that's a great fit.
Overall pick. James, are you going to be taking this, or is Riv?
No, James
can take it. Riv can take it because I had 2 last time.
You sure?
I did. I took Harper 2 last time.
Okay, because I was going to let you take. I was fine with going last. But I think the obvious pick here is Dill Harper. Let's get that out the way. I think it doesn't matter what team has second. If Flagg is off the board, you go Dylan Harper. And now he's sliding to Utah, to kind of play with Lauri Markkanen, to play with Walker Kessler and them boys. And Utah's in a funny spot because I think they're like, I don't know what they're doing. Like, they have talent, but then they're also losing a ton of games. They haven't really moved off of guys they could move off of, like Jordan Clark, like Colin Sexton, guys that can get them more draft capital. And their young players haven't really progressed in the way you want to. They've been dangling around Kessler for a first-round pick. Keontae George has kind of been a bit of a roller coaster. Cody Williams is absolute dog shit at the moment. Bryce Sensabaugh, whatever. Isaiah Collier, whatever. Like they're Taylor Hendricks, he's out for the season. He tore his ACL or his Achilles a while ago. So their young, talent hasn't really taken the proper steps that it needs to. You start fresh and you start strong right here with Dylan Harper at number 2. Somebody who can come in, give you an immense talent at just putting pressure on the rim, getting to his spots, being a guy who just has really good ball handling and physical frame for his guard spot. He reminds me of physicality. He reminds me of Tyreek Evans, 6'4", 6'5" point guard, kind of a bigger build, a lot stronger, kind of in that Gilbert Arenas, Tyreek Evans, bigger guard type of like. So I like Dylan Harper here for number 2.
It doesn't matter what his dad says about Utah. If Utah has a second overall pick, they take Dylan Harper.
Yeah.
His dad is funny.
Yeah, if for people who are listening, his dad is Ron Harper, and he still has grudges toward things he was told in Utah during the Chicago Bulls runs.
Rightfully so.
Spoiler alert. Fans, if you can name the teams Ron Harper played for, drop it in the comments, because I know half of you don't know him. It's okay.
Damn, I can tell you.
Tell me, John.
You want to test my ball knowledge here?
Yeah, who did Ron Harper get drafted to?
All right, so who did he get drafted to? It's a
I know what
fantastic.
draft pick he was.
He was a top 5 pick. I feel
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't a top 5 pick. Okay.
No.
Maybe not. All right, so I lied there. I know that he started his career in Cleveland, and then he went to the Clippers. After that, he would move on to the Bulls, where he won 5 championships.
No,
Not 6.
he did not win 5.
He won 3, right?
He was only in the second three-peat.
Okay. But he won multiple other championships elsewhere, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe after he went to play with the Lakers.
So thank you for giving me that team.
Yeah, I remember his Cleveland stint. He played with Mark Price and Brad Daugherty, and they played Michael Jordan. They were actually really good.
By the way, to add to that Cleveland, those guys were all in the same draft. Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, and Ron Harper. Daugherty went first in 86. Mark Price went, I think, 27th, and then it might in that range, and then Ron Harper went 8th overall. So that was a really weak draft, by the way. That was unfortunately the Len Bias draft as well at pick 2. And then Washburn went number 3, and he was awful. Washburn was garbage. So it was an awful draft, and they somehow came away with like 3 of the 4 best players in that class.
Which is insane.
They were actually that was their catalyst for making the playoffs. Those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Mark Price had like a 3-4 stint when he was like one of the best point guards in the league at the time.
There's a case that is one of the 5 most impressive draft classes in NBA history for an individual team. Not because of only the players who went in that draft, but the context of what that draft was and where they were picking. I mean, it's unbelievable how they came away with those 3 guys, and it was not a deep draft, and they got 1, 8, and then in the 20s somewhere. So It's impressive.
What would you guys say are the greatest draft hauls? I can't speak today. What would you guys say are the greatest individual draft hauls for an NBA team? I would say the first one that comes to mind is the Mavericks in 2018 getting Luka, and you trade up to get Luka. And then the second round, you double down Jalen Brunson.
Yep. Recently, Chet and J-Dub is really high. It's going to be really high eventually.
Damn, I will have to think. Wow, that's a great question. That's something that you have to go back and look at that. Like, wow. Damn. Yeah, that's
the Cavaliers, 1980. What year is that?
86.
So Ron Harper's 8th overall pick. I was close. And he did win 5 championships.
Yeah.
Who was the other 2 with?
The Lakers.
I figured, yeah.
He did play. I knew that he played in the Bulls for more than just the second 3-peat. He was there the 2 years that MJ was retired.
Yeah, I figured. I just knew he won. He only won with the 3-peat teams.
Mm-hmm.
That was like their MJ replacement.
Fun fact, I met him.
Oh, for real?
Who?
Ron Harper.
Oh, that's cool. I think we should transition to number 3 because I think we're all kind of stuck right now.
Come on. I thought we could cook up right there a couple more. That's all good.
I know. I thought of recent ones. That was like an epiphany. I'm not sure why I thought of 86. But all right, pick number 3, the Brooklyn Nets. So there's 2 names that come to mind. One is Ace Bailey. He's one of the players. There's a lot of questions with Ace Bailey, and we can go into them. So because of those questions, I'm going to draft the person whose name sounds like a Harry Potter spell. I'm going to take Kasparas Yakashionis, 3rd overall.
That's Tyrese Halliburton 2.0.
He's honestly, that's not a bad comp, but he is probably, you can make the case, the most complete overall player in the draft outside of the top 2 because he's got size. He doesn't turn the ball over. Excellent shooter, nearly 90% on the line, over 40% from 3. He's crafty, awesome in the pick and roll. Like Tyrese a little bit, you wish there was a little more juice at the rim. You wish there was a little more physical pressure. But when you look at that size and that skill level, that intelligence, those guys in the NBA always find a way to work. And I think Brooklyn having a catalyst to set up Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton and whatever they do with Cam Johnson, etc., I think it's no-brainer.
That's a good pick. That's for Brooklyn, I'm assuming. Makes sense. Need a guard. Need somebody that can push the team to a different heights. Listen, Brooklyn at that point, you take best player available. If you want to go with the whole develop, Ace is cool, but I think KJ has kind of earned his spot at number 3. So I like it. I think Cash to Brooklyn makes sense. I feel like you could have went Ace with a different guard down the road, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, I think that's still a good pick.
Now, at the 4th overall pick for the Washington Wizards, we kind of find ourselves in a particular situation because they have a front court kind of filled out. They took Alex Starr last year, the year before they took Bilal Coulibaly. And of course, this is a team that still has Jordan Poole's playing quite well at the 2 guard spot. So right now, their 2 biggest needs to meet be point guard. Jared Butler's played some pretty good games recently, and then power forward. And I look at the draft board right now, and quite frankly, I think Ace Bailey would fit in best given what they need. And that would be the opportunity for him to kind of be a main scorer and a go to guy alongside Jordan Poole. So if I'm looking at Washington right now, I feel like they have not a whole lot of expectations moving forward, whereas Ace has kind of been in that discussion of top 3 prospects. I think this would be a strong place for him to develop because they have a good defensive foundation to build around off of him. And then he's not going to have too many responsibilities, I think, sharing them with Jordan Poole. So this is the pick that I think here, if you're Washington, it's really a no-brainer.
Interesting.
He's an interesting player, man. I lean on the more positive side of Ace Bailey than I think where NBA Twitter's going because he is, while he's not an A+ athlete, he's at minimum an A- athlete at that size. And I don't believe that the free throw shooting is representative of what he is as a shooter. I think he's a really gifted, tough shot maker. I wish his lower body was more flexible. I wish he had more creativity, but he's got size, he's got shot making, and I think if you channel him properly with the right coaching, he could be an excellent defender and a potential secondary scorer, kind of like a Jaylen Brown level player if he puts it together. So I think that upside is worth it at 4.
Yeah, Washington has a nice, intriguing group of young players that are a little bit fun, a little bit exciting. You kind of don't know what they are, but it's definitely something to worth taking note. You got Bilal Coulibaly, who we expected, a super big leap this year, and he hasn't fully taken that. You got Bob Carrington, who I think is a strong guard at just being a scorer. You got Keyshawn George, and you got Jordan Poole, who's kind of the oldest of the group, who's playing really well this year. So you kind of just at this point with Washington trying to build. Oh, and of course I can't forget Sarr, the top 2 pick. And he's played really well defensively this year, and he's kind of figured out his way as the season prolongs. But I agree. I think you need a point guard. I do think Ace right now is in a situation where he is a lot of talent, but there's a lot of flaws to his game. At the same time, you can send him to Washington, and he'll be able to play out those flaws and be able to develop. It's just about if you trust Washington to develop that talent. I think Ace is cool here. I think with Casper's off the board, you kind of could grab another point guard late. So I'm fine with Ace at 4. I guess it's my turn, and I am running with the Toronto Raptors. And they have Emmanuel quickly. They have RJ Barrett. This screams like an Egor pick. I'm not saying I'm picking him, but it just feels like Toronto loves his physical attributes. Loves how he's 6'9", he can play guard. He's tall, he's lanky. But then do I go reach here and I go Jeremiah Fears? I could go Derek Queen, VJ, Trey Johnson.
No Malwatch love, man.
Nah, not here.
I love Malwatch.
Toronto could reach for him, though. This one's kind of tough. This one's tough for me because I feel like Toronto can go multiple ways. You got RJ Barrett, who's playing really well this year, but, he's not your long-term, plans. Same with Emmanuel Quickly. He's not in your long-term plans. Your long-term plans is Scotty Barnes and Grady Dick. With that being said, I'm going to go here with Egor. I'm gonna go Egor Demin in here. I'm gonna go. I think they take Egor right here. I think they bank on the upside. I think they bank on the shooting being comparable. I think he can fit next to Scotty. I think they run a lot of Scotty at the guard spot, and why not just put a bunch of long, lengthy shooters around him in Egor and Grady Dick. So I'll go Egor here. I think they go for the upside and bank on his development.
Interesting. If he can shoot, man, it's a no-brainer.
If he
Sixth
can't,
pick, another
that's
weird
an
pick.
issue.
There's some weird teams in this spot.
Mhm.
I am so proud that my Evis Missy stock has come into fruition. I had a lottery grade on him. I was a super big fan. I had a take on Twitter. I said, if there is a potential Giannis in this draft, I think it's Evis Missy. So we'll see where that goes. I really like the kid. Now, when I look at the Pelicans, outside of Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, I think everything's expendable, including Brandon Ingram, including Zion. And honestly, man, I just want dogs on my team. I just want Brandon Ingram and Zion, man. They're not dogs, man. They're just not.
No.
I'm going to get the biggest dog at this point of the draft. I'm going to go VJ Edgecombe, 6th overall. He's starting to put it together offensively as of late. It was a very slow start, but he's a little small, but super athlete, super competitor. I think he has a chance to develop into a Victor Oladipo type player if he figures out the skill on offense. I think he's one of the best upside bets when you consider the tools and mentality and defense. And I think that personality in that Pelicans locker room will make a big difference.
I like that a lot.
I agree too. I like VJ. I do think the stock has dropped, but I do think he's also not a college player. I think sometimes you get those guys who they have the super upside, but they just don't fully fit into college and the infrastructure that college places on you, and the kind of the limitations, because college is very system based. What the coach wants, you don't really get to do your thing too much. And then I feel like VJ. I do like his potential. I think upside, I'd swing for it. So I like that pick there.
I like pairing him alongside Herb Jones, just on the wing, get that athleticism. And then you have Trey Murphy this year, who's been one of the biggest breakout players, or at least building off of last season, which was kind of a year where there's so much opportunity with BI going down. And then Zion gets hurt in the playing tournament. And I feel like with all of the uncertainty this year in New Orleans, they're building something on the wing. So I like adding VJ into that group. Now, at the 7th overall pick, I have the Portland Trailblazers. I look at Scoot Henderson, who has started to pick things up, and then Shaden Sharp, who's having his best season so far. So there's not a clear need necessarily beyond that small forward, power forward spot. I mean, what do you guys think would be the right route here? Because I need some guidance.
I think with Portland, you have to give Scoot another year.
Yeah.
And I think you it's not, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I do think they give him the full keys next year. I think Anthony Simons, they'll probably trade him, which is not a bad thing. He just doesn't fit the timeline. Shaden, Scoot, Donovan Clingan, those are kind of your timeline guys. Kamara, somebody you would want to keep. He's a really good elite defender, I'd say, just stuck in Portland. So I think you go wing. I think right here you go wing or somebody who can play the 4, kind of play the 3, and I think you maybe even think about going another guard. It's tough though, because I would go Newell here. I think this would be where Asa goes. Personally, I think you need. I think Jeremiah Grant isn't your long-term guy.
Wait, could you repeat that last part, Riv? I totally missed that.
Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, Jeremy Grant. I said Jeremiah. I think Jeremy Grant isn't your long-term success, and I think Clingan is your guy at the 5 once you can get off Ayton. Once you can, if you want to move Rob, you can move Rob, but he could be your backup too. But I think at the 4, it's kind of where you're sitting there like, because you have Denny Advia, you have Kamara, you have Scoot, you have Shaden. So you kind of have your 1, 2, 3 in a sense. So like your 4 is kind of your window where you're sitting like, so I would go Asa here personally, but I also like Liam McNeely. I think he's a good spot. Colin Murray, I don't know if I'd reach this far for him either.
What I would do personally, because at this point of the draft, there's a lot of guys I like, but nobody who I like enough to just throw in and just say, okay, figure it out with these kids. Like fit really matters here. And I think they need more secondary playmaking and spacing after they trade Simons. So my pick would be Concanoopel here personally, because I think among those connective wings, he's the most capable on ball, and he's starting to really put it together as a shooter lately. He shot 9 for 11 the other day. So Knoop will be my pick here.
The moment that Riv said the need here is wing was when I started to look a little bit further down the draft board, because here Knoopel is all the way down at the 15th spot. but I feel like he'd be, based off the prospects who I've looked at, a lot higher up for me. And like you said before, he's one of the best shooters in this draft class, taking 6 attempts a game. He's making them at a high clip. And he comes across as that kind of polished secondary creator offensively. He had a donut versus Boston College recently, but I do believe with, Scoot playing very well as of late and Shaden, you want someone who can kind of just fill in beside them and not really take anything away or stunt their development. So I think Con Knoopel's the best fit here for Portland. And at the 7th overall slot, they had it last year and they took Clinton. I think you're starting to prioritize need a little bit more that way. You can focus on player development because you can look at these young cores like the Rockets and the Thunder, which are stockpiled young talent. But at a certain point, you have to find your guys or 2 or 3 building blocks, and everyone else you're drafting around them has to basically complement them at the highest level possible. And I think Knoopel can be that in the NBA.
I think he can have a Bogdanovich type impact in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a fair pick.
I like that. Some teams, it's going to be hard for some of these teams because once you get outside the top 3, it becomes tricky because now are you picking for best player available? Are you picking for need? What does your team already have? Do you even have room? Like our team right here, which is my pick, which now I'm fucked because it's OKC. And what do they really need? I guess another big man would help, but you have Chet, you have Hartenstein.
Right.
I look at it like this. You have SGA, you have Cason Wallace, you have Caruso. Those are kind of your Isaiah Joe. Those are kind of your guards who are, booked up. You just paid Caruso. You gave Isaiah Joe a little bit of a cool contract last year. Cason Wallace, you're really high on. So your guards are solidified. Now your wings, you have J-Dub, you have Lou Dortz. Usman Dieng, you haven't really been given any minutes for. Dylan Jones and Kenrick Williams in certain spurts this year has been solid for them. Kenrick Williams has really seen the floor. Aaron Wiggins, I really like his game. He's another wing that they're really high on, and they gave him a nice, cool contract. So now you're sitting at big man depth, and I think that's where I'm going to go here with it. And I think I might not reach. I think you bank on Malak, and I'll go Malak here. I'll go Malak here. I think Chet can play the 4. He can play the 5. I think what you want to run is a nice, cool 4 out, 5 out if that fits your system. And I think Malak's potential, you can bank on him being a stout rim protector. And I think with him and Chet, you'll have one of the best defensive front courts in basketball, along with J-Dub, who's really good on the defensive side. Yeah, iHeart is cool. You like him starting. He can kind of, take Malak under the wing. And with OKC, it's so hard because Malak could probably get traded for a star anyway. So that's another guy you can dangle in a deal to get an Embiid or a Kevin Durant in a year or something like that if they want to do that. So I think Malak, you take him and you do what OKC always does. Wait for the right time to either pull the trigger or develop him really well.
Good pick. Good pick.
I love that fit. I mean, Oklahoma City already has an incredible defensive front court, but now with especially Chet missing time this year, we've seen they've been starting Jalen Williams recently, and he's played well enough for them even blow out the Cavaliers on Thursday. But to add even more front court depth, I think that's something they could use with Chet missing a good amount of time, of course, between his rookie year and the season.
Now that the Pistons have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs and the pick conveying, I've had some really dirty thoughts about Kama Mauloch in a Timberwolves uniform. So, man, it's a good pick. I have like a 10% side of hope for me. So if he could be learning from Rudy Gobert, my life would be so great. All right.
This is you with the 9th overall pick.
I got the 9th overall pick, another weird team. So Josh Giddey, who's had a up and down season, but he's had really good moments. I think they're going to invest into him at the point guard position with Kobe White, and there's whatever the heck this is. Is this a rebuild? I don't know anymore. We've questioned this for like 10 years with the Bulls, but Vucevic has had a great year, and he might be an asset at the deadline. If they had a pulse with the way Levine and Vucevic are playing right now, you might get something for those two, which 2 months ago, nobody would have said. So they have an opportunity to rebuild, which they probably won't. But I think the pick here for me will be Derek Queen, getting a very, kind of replacing Vucevic, getting a highly skilled offensive player. I was just watching him. a moment ago against Nebraska, dropping dimes. He's a highly skilled big who I think in an NBA setting with a guy like Kobe White and whatever Montes Bazelis becomes, etc., I think he could be a really interesting kind of hub on offense. Sort of like Alper and Şengün in a way. I'm not going to say Alper and Şengün level, but something like that.
I like that pick. I do believe if Chicago has a brain, Zach and Vooch are not here at the deadline. You
Vooch is
cannot
playing too well.
Too well. Zach's playing too well. And listen, I get it. You look competitive. Chicago, they always sell out. You want to remain competent. Make the right decision. You're sitting at 10th seed in the play-in. You don't want to be sitting at 10th seed in the play-in right now. You really don't. Move Zach. Move Vooch. If you can move off somebody else to get more draft capital, you do that. Do it the right way. Don't hold on to these players longer than what you need to, especially with Vooch, who's had up and downs in Chicago. You don't want to miss out on the fact that he's playing so high right now that you can get something for him.
He just dropped 40. He just dropped 40. Yeah.
That would be an Arturas Karnisovas special, waiting until it's too late to trade a player whose trade value is once very high and getting absolutely nothing in return for that. Back to the redraft. We've got an interesting pick here at the San Antonio Spurs because with Victor Wembanyama, you have yourself your franchise cornerstone. You have yourself your franchise face. But the question to me becomes, do we take Trey Johnson when his play style to me kind of could rub into Devin Vassell's workload? And Devin
They're the
Vassell,
same damn player.
literally the same exact player, same position, same size, same archetype, it seems. But I will say that Vassell has had a decent amount of games missed over the years. This year's played 25 games played. 2 years ago, I missed over half the season. And I feel like while Devin Vassell's a solid player, he's not so good that we're going to pass up on the best player on the board. And quite frankly, I like Stefan Castle a lot, and the shooting has not been there. At 25% from three, I feel like they should try to utilize him more as a true point guard. And with that in mind, you're going to have to go win here. I'm taking the best, I shouldn't say win, but I'm taking the best two guard on the board, the best scorer, and that's the best prospect in Trey Johnson to the Spurs. You're getting yourself instant bucket getting, and quite frankly, I think it's too good to pass up on a 10 because to me, he's right around that top 5 discussion.
He's a great shooter still. He's a really good shooter, and the Spurs need more shooting. And it's funny to say he looks and acts and plays like Devin Vassell, but, I mean, I think the Spurs could use 2 Devin Vassells. So, cool.
I would have went Liam there, personally, just because I feel like you bring in more shooting. You bring in a guy who can play within the system, a guy who's very good off the connective passing and stuff like that. But I don't hate Trey Johnson. It's just you don't want 2 Devin Vassells. So if you're getting Trey Johnson, you're probably banking on trading Vassell in a deal to get a Fox or a Trae Young or something like that, which I think is fine. You know, I think it's really fine. So I'm cool with it because at the end of the day, you can put little to nothing around Victor, and we see what he's doing.
Oh, that's true. I guess my pushback on that is that Trey Johnson still is a really good shooter. This year he's making 40% of them. And the Spurs are still a talent-deprived offensive team where I think McNeely would maybe fit in well, but I don't think the upside is quite there. So I still want to swing for the fences and get more offensive creation. And if he's not a great playmaker, fine. You can solve that maybe down the line with Shohan, Wemby, and Stefan Castle developing. But I feel like for San Antonio right now, they're around like 19th offensively in offensive rating, 16th in points a game. They need a swing on upside on that end of the floor still.
Yeah. It's a weird pick to have. It's 11, right? So
it's me. It's
Miami.
Me. And we are sitting at the Miami pick.
There's one guy who's such a heat right here. 2 guys, actually.
It feels like a few guys who are in such a heat, honestly. We're looking at the roster. We got Tyler Hero. Jimmy Butler's probably gone at this point. You got Bam. Listen, Miami still wants to remain competitive. They still wants to be a team that can hover around, make some noise, and they can do that. You know, you have Tyler. They've kind of done that without Jimmy Butler this year, essentially. Kevin Love probably retires. So I'm looking at a roster on the fence. You have Rozier, you have Hero, then you have Duncan, you have Jaime, you have Jovic, Bam, Kel'el Ware. I'm going guard here. And I think the guard I'm going to go is Jeremiah Fears.
I'm
going Jeremiah Fears here. Come in, he brings a bona fide scorer. And listen, for Miami Heat fans, you haven't had this type of bona fide scoring at the guard spot in some time. You know, you've rattled the fence with guys like Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, you know, and stuff like that. But you haven't had this type of score. 6'4" guy. You know, I really like Jeremiah Fears here. And one thing about Miami, you know, we can talk about Pat Riley not being able to pull the trigger and get free agents here, but they can develop. They can develop some talent. So I believe in Jeremiah Fears here. So that's where I'm going with the pick.
I'm a fan. Dude just knows how to get to the rim pretty much at will. He's physical. He has an understanding of angles. I mean, he's, I believe, one of the 3 youngest freshmen in this draft class. And he was supposed to be a senior in high school this year. And the way he's just walked in and has been Oklahoma's best scoring option, it's very impressive. Very impressive.
Now moving on to the 12th overall pick. If Johnny Boy can slide up. All right, here we are.
Sacramento.
James.
Okay. This is interesting. So there's a few people I have in mind. I think the Kings they're playing better lately, right? And my guess, it's kind of like that one like nerd who gets a girl out of his league and then just like won't let her go when she cheats on him like 3 times. It's kind of like that. Like the Kings are like they don't suck anymore, and it's like, yay, we don't suck. We can't let this go and rebuild. We don't care. Fox and Sabonis can't win us a championship. Let's just keep building around them, right? That's what it kind of reminds me of. So I'm kind of thinking about this in the lens of building around those two. And can you go a little down?
Of course.
Awesome.
I'm on the point guard section. That's not really helping me much.
Okay. Thank you.
You're looking at prospect number 50 and number 11. My fault.
So one prospect who's my favorite, I'm still contemplating if I should take him because he's a project, but I really like the tape. You know what? I just like this guy a lot, so I'm just going to take him. I'm going to take can you go up?
Of course.
I don't know if I love this pick, but I just like this player, so I want to take him. I'm going to go Noah Ishangu.
Okay.
Wow.
You like
So,
France guy.
Yep. We have to take our French project every draft in the lottery. And this kid, when you watch the tape, he's not a great shooter yet, but every time I watch him, I'm like, he's going to be a good shooter because he's got really good mechanics. He's very fluid, very natural, great touch. And he has this, you can say even like a Jaden McDaniels type build where he's really tall, very athletic, very long, very coordinated. I can see this dude become a stud defensively in the NBA, and he's already a very intuitive cutter, and he's starting to figure out that jump shot. I think he's going to be a really good 3-and-D player in the NBA.
Sounds good. Now, at the last pick in the lottery, I have the honors, but I feel like it's only right to make this a group selection. No, it's the second to last pick. It's the Warriors at 13. My apologies.
We do the last 2 picks group picks because
We can do that. Yep. So everyone has a kind of equal vote in here. Riv, you can start off here. This is your team. It's your pick. It's an important one for a young core that has been disappointing.
Yeah, dog shit. You're being so generous. Young core dog shit.
Hate to hear it.
Yeah, listen. Probably Steph's probably still in the roster. Dre's still in the roster. I'm looking at it. If I know Steve Kerr like I do, he's looking at Liam McNeely like, oh, he screams Warrior. He is a Warriors guy. He just screams it. But I feel like you have to take best available. This is a tricky situation because you have Steph, you have Pods, you have Wiggins, you have Dre, you have Kevon Looney, Trace Davis, GP, Dennis Schroeder is probably a free agent. Kaminga's going to be on the roster. You still have Buddy Hield, you still have Moses Moody. So there's a lot of tricky things going. I'd go Asa Newell here. I'd start preparing for Draymond's departure, Kevon Looney's departure. I start to try to figure out life without Steph. And if you're going to figure out life without Steph, you're not going to find a guard this late that can do anything near of what Steph can do. And maybe if you do, you find him late. But I think Asa Newell, I think he's the best player on the board right now for Golden State. So I'd go Ace right here. I think this would be my pick. It's either him or Liam, honestly, for the Warriors.
I have a question, Riv. What do you think of this comp? Offensively, he reminds me a lot of Marvin Bagley in a way, in terms of the energetic lefty big who's a really good cutter, can hit an open jumper once in a while. But then defensively, he kind of has a little bit of an Okongwu in him in terms of just the size and versatility. Like Marvin Bagley just never figured it out defensively. He could be like a Bagley on offense and then defensively be a really good connective big, which is great fit on the Warriors, don't you think?
Yeah, and listen, if he can even stretch out and get a little mid range in him, a little pick and pop game, can hit the three ball at 35%, this is great. Like nobody, and we're not even asking him to be what Bagley was, which is a post up machine and a guy who can get to his spot on the block in college. Like, because Bagley's tape was ridiculous. Like, he was a great prospect coming out. If you can just be that to where you're a little bit less Bagley on offense, but you have a little bit more of shooting range, and then you can be that on defense, that's exactly kind of what you need from Asa. That's kind of what you're banking on.
Yeah, if that turns out to be the case, he would be a great fit on the Warriors.
Now, the last first-round pick, the last lottery selection, I should say, the Houston Rockets are benefiting by way of a Suns first-round pick. And, yeah, if the Suns miss the playoffs, that'd be quite the disappointment. I feel like if you're Houston here, you're looking for that polished kind of complementary player because there's so many young talented pieces. One of them is Cam Whitmore. Another one's Reed Shepard, who's been playing so well when they've sent him down to the G League. But there's quite clearly an influx of talent here. There's almost too many young guys to develop. I feel like the right pick would be a Liam McNeely who can just kind of fill in as a shooter off the bench, or Corey Kispert, and someone who can kind of just be like a really good valve next to Alperen Şengün and Eamon Thompson, because you have what seems like a developing backcourt of the future. Jalen Green playing quite well, and then Eamon looking fantastic on both sides of the ball, getting better and better. So my decision here would be Liam McNeely, but
he or Colin Murray Boyles, either one's good for me.
That was
I think they go guys that can help them immediately. I think those two guys fit that. If I do see them reach, is for Hugo Gonzalez. I think that'd be somebody they'd reach for, like maybe just shelf him and try to develop him. But those two guys, yeah, I'm fine with. They'll go with either one. I think to kind of fit what they want to do now. They might not even have this pick. They might trade it. So
very valid point. So the last pick of the lottery, we're going UConn product Liam McNeely. With the first pick in the 2025 NBA drafts, the Charlotte Hornets select Cooper Flagg.
With the second pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Utah Jazz take Dylan Harper.
With the third pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Kapris Yakasionis from Illinois.
With the fourth overall pick, the Washington Wizards select Ace Bailey.
With the fifth overall pick, the Toronto Raptors take Egor Demin.
Good catch, by the way, because it says Wizards twice.
I know.
With the sixth pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select VJ Edgecombe from Baylor.
With the seventh overall pick, the Portland Trailblazers select Con Knuble.
With the eighth overall pick, excuse my English, but the OKC Thunder take Kaman Malak. Hope I said it right.
With the ninth overall pick, the Chicago Bulls select Derek Queen.
With the 10th overall pick, the San Antonio Spurs select Trey Johnson.
With the 11th overall pick, the Miami Heat take Jeremiah Fears.
I hope I pronounced this name properly. With the 12th overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Noah Ishangu.
That was beautiful.
With the 13th overall pick, the Golden State Warriors select Asa Noel.
And with the 14th and final pick in the lottery, the Houston Rockets take Liam McNeely.
Before we get into 2020, guys, I just want to talk about that a little bit because it was a weird draft because obviously the pandemic and we didn't have a really normal draft process, and then it happened in November, and that's on top of the fact that a lot of people thought it was going to be a very uncertain and potentially weak draft. I mean, in the realms of 2013, 2000, like people talk about 2024 last year, and it wasn't as bad as 2024, but it was probably the next thing after. So now that we know what this class was 4 years later, is it pretty fair to say that this draft heavily exceeded expectations?
Oh, yeah. This is one of the biggest examples of it because, like you highlighted, there was a very bizarre draft process. There was no March Madness to kind of complete the process. And on top of that, the scouting was so bizarre, and the draft is for the first time ever in my time as an NBA fan, hosted in November, weeks before the NBA season. So it definitely changed the way a lot of these prospects are perceived because so many of them are project-based players, LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards, and even players who maybe did not work out, like James Wiseman or let's say a guy who like Onyeka Konwu, who I was super high on. And those types of players were looked at a lot differently pre-draft because I feel like on one side of the equation, their weaknesses were kind of over accentuated. They're highlighted a little bit more, like LaMelo Ball's three-point shooting. While on the other side, a lot of people looked at James Wiseman as a safe can't-miss pick for the Warriors because they needed a center desperately. So looking at how many players have worked out from this draft class, and there being 4 All-Stars already, I think it's been a great example of the class overachieving.
Yeah, it was a good draft looking at it back. Like I had to quickly do some research. It definitely was a weird time in our NBA lives where we just were going through a lot. There was a lot of breakage and scouting was at an all-time different rate. But nonetheless, I now looking at the names, I remember this year vividly. We had guys like in college, Ashton Hagans at Kentucky, Devon Dotson at Kansas. Like we had some names out of this class. So I'm excited to talk about it because I feel like this one has a lot of good players, and I think like the role players are really going to be where the conversation stems from.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, Edwards and Ball were so weird as prospects because obviously LaMelo Ball, we've followed his unconventional path for years. But Anthony Edwards also didn't play at a Montverde. He graduated high school a year early. So for a potential number 1 pick, he was pretty unfamiliar. And then he goes to a school like Georgia, and it just, I mean, worst spacing you could probably have on a college floor. So it was a lot of these guys had, I think, a lot more to give than people thought because they were in very unforgiving circumstances for most number 1 picks, number 3 picks. So it was obviously the James Wiseman, the suspension. It was such a weird draft. So
Absolutely. Now
okay.
I'll let Riv get the first overall pick here, unless James you will like it. Either or, because I got the first overall pick before. Starting the Timberwolves number 1, so
James, you can go first. This feels like your draft.
Okay, it definitely is. It saved my mental health in a lot of ways. But with the first pick in the 2020 NBA Redraft, I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards. He's the only guy in the draft where I'm pretty confident, like, he's going to be a superstar. You can argue he already is one with what he's done in the playoffs at his age. He's about to make his 3rd All-Star team. If he stays healthy, he's going to make his 2nd All-NBA team, all before age 23. So he's been fantastic. And this is a guy who went from 29% from 3 in college to shooting 43% from 3 on 10 attempts. One of the craziest developments we've ever seen. So you combine, a freak A++ athlete with this developing skill level, it's really hard to imagine what type of heights he can take.
Okay, you can go second, John. I haven't gone last.
Really, with your team, you want me to take your pick?
Yeah, because I think that this is obvious. I do want to ask because I want to. Golden State, you know how they play. They're very a lot of ball movement. They love
playing around a lot of ball movement.
Yes. There's 2 options here that I want you to go in depth about because I do think everybody thinks the easy answer is LaMelo Ball. Does Tyrese Halliburton enter your matrix just for Golden State and the way they play?
Without a doubt, those are my top 2 options here because Halliburton is the perfect passer and off-ball player. Now, coming into last year, he was also a career 40% three-point shooter out of 3 years. To shoot that well, averaging 10 assists and 21 points a game, he back then was the clear-cut choice for me because of how well he fit into their system. Now, last 2 years, he shot 36% from 3. He's dealt with hamstring issues, which have kind of further highlighted and heightened those burst questions. LaMelo Ball, on the other hand, this year has been averaging 30 points a game on still elite shooting on an offense, which is the 2nd worst in the NBA. So I'm going to pick Tyrese Halliburton. I'm still going Hallie. I still believe while LaMelo has generally in the past been an elite shooter, I want to correct myself. This year, the volume at 13 attempts a game is insane, but I still question the efficiency. And I believe that Halliburton would fit in so well into the end of that window when they went to win a championship in the 2022 season. that was a team which had Jordan Poole playing very well off the bench. But I believe Halliburton would be that table setter to get Poole going and quite possibly keeps Poole in a place like Golden State because you have a clear-cut point guard to run the offense. And now I think the biggest part is Steph Curry is playing less than 30 minutes per game in the stage of his career. Halliburton is the better organizer and orchestrator of your offense than LaMelo Ball. I do believe LaMelo Ball is more scoring punch, but that doesn't take away from the polishness, the polished part of Halliburton's game, which to me just makes him better fit for a contender like Golden State. So I'm going Tyrese Halliburton here at number 2.
Did you think at all about Tyrese Maxey?
I did. That was the third person I did really strongly consider, but considering he had Jordan Poole at that point in time and also Klay Thompson, I have to kind of factor in he's not going to get the same playing time and maybe opportunity to develop. So he was the third option of the 3.
Yeah, I feel like you could have went. It could have been those 2 guards, Maxey, Desmond Bane, like anything but Wiseman. At this point, hindsight looking back. So for me, the third pick is essentially easy. You run it right back with LaMelo Ball. He heads back over there to Charlotte. He is, if not the second best player in this class, the third best player in this class. And you just, start fresh with what you've been doing. LaMelo walks into Charlotte, makes him competent his first 2 years there. And then unfortunately, the team just goes into the depths of hell after that. But I think, LaMelo Ball is still a really talented player, and you pick him pretty easily with the third pick if he's on the board.
And maybe they get Cooper Flag based on our mock draft.
They would take Killian Hayes if that was real their mindset there. With the 4th overall pick, we had the Chicago Bulls.
Yup. And I think this is pretty easy. I'm going to take Tyrese Maxey. He's clear-cut all-star caliber talent for years to come. Really high-end scorer, obviously. Not a great fit with that core, obviously, with Zach LaVine and etc. But who cares? They had the 4th pick for a reason that year. You just take the player, you figure it out. And the Sixers have had a rebuild year, but we've seen Tyrese Maxey in the biggest moments really show up, even as a rookie. So, special scorer.
Absolutely. With the 6th overall pick,
5th.
the Atlanta Hawks found themselves.
Fifth.
Oh,
You're in Cleveland.
I was really hoping to take this player at 6.
Okay, here we go. You want to switch? I can go Cleveland, and you go Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I'll round off Cleveland. I'm assuming at this time Darius Garland is on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mistaken. Yep, he's on the team. He's fresh off arguably a atrocious dog shit rookie year. Yeah. The year after this, they take Mobley, if I'm not mistaken. Damn, they had a run of just boom, boom, boom. So the originating pick is Isaac Okoro. And I think, y'all know how John knows specifically how much I love Isaac. That's one of my brothers.
Yeah.
But you go Desmond Bane here. You go Desmond Bane with this pick.
Yeah.
You pair him with Darius Garland in the backcourt. You may not have to make that trade for, Donovan Mitchell. Maybe you go trade for a high-profile wing that can really do some damage. But I think Desmond Bane, Darius Garland, a little small, but not – it's the same height as him and Donovan Mitchell. Desmond Bane brings some much-needed shooting to the backcourt, and he's upped his playmaking, as the years went on. And you probably still get Evan Mobley regardless of if Desmond Bane gets picked here or not. So I think Desmond Bane and Garland find backcourt. A lot of shooting from that backcourt. So I go Desmond Bane with the 5th pick.
No surprise. That was who I was really trying to get to pair alongside Trae Young, a elite shooter who can really bring a lot off the ball, and I think would have been perfect. So instead with the 6th overall pick, we're going to go with a similar type of idea, but not the same type of player. To me, that is someone who was rising all the way up from the 25th overall pick, Emmanuel Quickley to the Atlanta Hawks, to pair alongside Trae Young. You're getting yourself a high-level three-point shooter, both off the catch, and someone who can still, in a second unit, give you some shot creation. He's a good guard defender, and I think the question here would be, can 2 undersized guards at 6'1" and 6'3" really give you a high ceiling? But even if that's the biggest question, Emmanuel Quickley would be a 6th man of the year candidate perennially in Atlanta. I believe he fits in very well off of Trae, and that's who I'm going to go here with the Hawks. At this point in the draft, you're starting to realize these star players, they're no longer available. So I'm going to go with someone who I think is just a really damn good complementary player.
I don't have a huge issue with that because, IQ, he's got really long arms. So there's that. But there's a few names you could have gone. I think Okongwu fit fine. I think Denny and McDaniels with what they can bring with size and defense.
Mhm.
You could put a roster of 11 of those guys with Trae Young, and he'll make it work.
You could. The reason I'll tell you right now why I didn't go Jaden McDaniels.
Because he
It's the
sucks.
It's the 3-point shooting and offensive game.
He's
And
playing better lately, though. I'll give him that. He's played really well.
he is,
this
but the
year,
last few years he's a
2025.
33% 3-point shooter.
Yep.
And he's not someone who's ever at any point expanded his offensive game. I was looking at Denny and IQ. I felt like Denny is a better example of someone who's really picked it up recently. And if I were to change the pick, that's the only name that I would really think about.
All right, with the 7th overall pick with the Detroit Pistons, I'm going to take the biggest riser this year, and that is Peyton Pritchard at point guard. I mean, what he's doing this year for the Celtics, I mean, he's not getting the minutes, but every time it feels like he's having a star-level impact. That's just how good he's been offensively.
Right.
And they wanted somebody who can create offense and space the floor. And Peyton Pritchard, I'm pretty confident because he came in as an older prospect. If he had that opportunity early, I think he would have been productive early. So I mean, he averaged almost 10 points a game his rookie year as well. I think Pritchard comes in and is probably one of the 4 leading rookie scorers at that time and is probably still a really good player right now like he is. So I think he's the 7th pick.
So I guess it's my turn. Dang, I can't believe this guy's falling out. So 8th pick is New York.
Yep.
They went with Obi Toppin last time. I think right here I'll go. This is where I'd swing and I'd go. Give me Denny Avia
There
here.
you go.
Man. Give
There
me
you
Denny. It was either between him or Vassell, but Denny Avia brings you a little bit more of a well-rounded, overall game. He's a really good defender, good at transition, solid player in the pick and roll. So I'll go Denny Avia here. I think New York going Obi. I think Denny Avia can provide you a little bit more. So I got Denny Avia with the 8th pick.
Now, I want to say the Pritchard pick made more sense because I think he would blow up in Detroit. I am still pretty shocked that Denny fell this far. I'll say this right now. I think of the players we're going to take today in the lottery, his reputation is the most skewed by the situation that he's in currently. He had a very slow start to the year. A lot of that's to do with the new situation, playing in a pretty young environment. But I think if there's any guy who could really take his game to the next level, it would be Denny on the playoff team. Now, the 10th overall pick, I have
9th. He wants the pick so bad.
I'll go with the 9th overall pick.
All right,
and this is the Washington Wizards. Good call, James. Thank you for correcting me there.
You're good, my friend.
The few names that I look at, one of these guys is hurt.
No, I have 10. Never mind.
You do have 10. The first name that I look at is Jaden McDaniels. The second would be Aaron Nesmith. The third name, this is going to be a bit of a riser. That's Nick Richards, who was taken all the way in the 2nd round of this draft class.
Devin Vassell? Did he already go? I don't think he did.
Devin Vassell's not been taken yet.
Okay.
And of the 3 players I named, none of them are in the same tier as Vassell. Thank you for showing me that he is still available on the board because I was in jeopardy of not taking him here at 9. I want him for Phoenix very badly. And that's going to be the pick here for the Wizards. You're getting yourself a high-level shot creator who still has a ways to go, I feel, as a playmaker and true defender. That's what he was drafted to be, this 3-and-D wing. But he's really overachieved and kind of exceeded that expectation. He's become someone who can give you instant offense, and at 6'6" on the wing, it's a valuable thing to have here. And 9th overall pick, I think you're making really the Denny pick was awesome for them. I think you're still getting yourself a similar caliber of a player here in the South.
So I guess it's me.
No, it's me.
Yeah,
sure. I'm actually done.
1, 4, 7, 10.
You sure?
1, 4, 7, 10.
Okay. There we go.
So with the 10th pick, everybody wants the Suns pick, it sounds like. But with the 10th overall pick, the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to take Jaden McDaniels still. And people will look at that and say, well, he's struggled offensively this year and last year. And I would say you're right. I would also add, I think he is one of the most misused offensive role players in the league because with Randall and Gobert, they've been forcing him to shoot threes. And Jaden McDaniels is still a very gifted scorer within the first 2 levels. He's got a great floater game. underrated handle, really good for mid-range. It can get to the rim. And he's starting to put it together in 2025. And the difference is they're putting him at the 4 more, and they're not asking him to consistently space the floor like that. He's still shooting a little bit, right? I mean, this month he's shooting 50, 40, 90, but he's not asked to be a floor spacer. And I think that type of McDaniels can average 14 or 15 in the NBA with all NBA defense. And I think you pair that and at that time with Mikal Bridges, and you have that type of defense around Booker and Chris Paul. And I think McDaniels is still a good player, and I think he's still top 10.
You said a lot of things about that offensive game that I don't agree with, but I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide for this one.
Hey, he can get to the rim and he can shoot from the midi. Those are 2 facts. Can he shoot threes consistently? No, but the rebounding is really picked up, and they are putting him in more natural positions. I think Chris Finch has had an idea that he could be this like 3-and-D guy, but he's more of a 2-and-D guy. So, unfortunately.
Okay, so I'm sitting here with the San Antonio Spurs pick, and there's a lot of guys that are essentially off the board that really, doesn't seem like guys who I'd want. I guess I'll go here with the 11th pick. I'm looking at it. They went with Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell is gone. So I'll grab a guy like Aaron Nesmith. For me, it was between Aaron Nesmith and Isaiah Joe. I'll go with the bigger, more athletic defender in Aaron Nesmith that could still give you a little bit something from the three-point line. Just bring in another quality role player. So give me Aaron Nesmith.
I think that's a great pick. He's unfortunately been hurt most of this year, but you're talking about a good 3-and-D player. Now at the 12th overall pick, I didn't skip myself this time. Going with the Kings. It's the team that took Tyrese Halliburton, who is not on the board. He's taken 10 spots higher in this redraft. And Sacramento at this point in time really needed defense, right? They had taken De'Aaron Fox already years before. And in this situation, you don't really have anything else outside of Buddy Hield, De'Aaron, and I guess it was Harrison Barnes of the 3. So, oh man, there's not too many great prospects left. It's between Nick Richards, Onyeka, and maybe even, unless I'm forgetting someone, you can let me know.
You got Isaiah Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart was who I was going to name.
Isaiah Joe.
Isaiah Joe is a good name because I
Josh Green is in here. Trey Jones.
I would not take Joe here, though, because they have just already Buddy Hield.
Oh,
Najee Marshall.
Najee Marshall was drafted this year. Or he was undrafted?
He was undrafted in 20.
Thank you so much for naming him. Is there anyone else that's undrafted that I should know about?
I think that's the only one.
Okay, because when we did the redraft for 2021, we did not include Austin Reeves. So do you guys want to include undrafted players?
I don't include undrafted because it's hard to find them.
Okay, so no Najee.
I think you include undrafted players. We just
should have. I would have, looking back now, included Reeves.
They're still on the draft board. They're still on the draft board.
Correct. Because we didn't, that doesn't mean we necessarily should not now. I would like to include Najee because I would take him right here.
You can.
Take him. We effed up. Doesn't mean we have to F up 10 times.
Yep. Exactly. There you go.
With the 12th overall pick, the Sacramento Kings are getting themselves a versatile defender and a good complementary player on offense. That's Najee Marshall.
All right.
Okay. 13th pick now. Who had 13 that year?
Eagles. By the
Pelicans.
Way, Eagles just scored 30-yard Jalen Hurts run. It's so lit.
Ooh, okay.
Sex.
All right. We'll pick 13, the Pelicans. So, you guys want to do like team picks again, like we did last time?
That works. Yep.
Okay. So, I think the Pelicans at this time.
It took Kira Lewis Jr.
Yep. They had Steven Adams at the time, I think. Or was it Valanciunas? Valanciunas that time.
That was Steven Adams.
No, was Steven Adams
here? Because that was before the Trey Murphy draft day trade, which swapped Valanciunas and Adams from the Pelicans.
That's right.
And Grizzlies. Yep.
Okay. So they had Zion. They had
Did we take Isaiah Joe yet?
Nope. That's who I'm thinking of right now.
You want to list the best players on the board?
So guys who come to mind: Onyeka Okongwu, Isaiah Joe, Nick Richards, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey. Those are the 5 that I think of.
Yeah, I'll probably toss in Precious Achiuwa.
Yeah, he's on that list. Just wouldn't have him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Trey Jones, who was taken in the second round.
Trey Jones.
He's not ties, but he's still a noteworthy second round pick, I would say.
Yes.
But he's not playing much this year.
I would probably go Isaiah Joe because, I mean, they took Jordan Hawkins last year, so this is kind of your new Jordan Hawkins before Jordan Hawkins. So, should we go with Jordan Hawkins here, guys? What do you think?
Jordan Hawkins.
Or Isaiah Joe?
There you go.
This was Jordan Hawkins' year?
No, Jordan Hawkins is 23. My point
4 years
was
before. 4 years.
Basically, they want Jordan Hawkins to be Isaiah Joe. That was my point.
That makes sense. Oh, yeah, I would go Isaiah Joe. He's probably the best on the board left.
Okay, let's go Isaiah Joe to the Pelicans.
Perfect.
And who had pick 14 this year?
The Boston Celtics.
They took
Boston Celtics.
Aaron Nesmith.
Ooh,
Isaiah Stewart?
I think a Kongu.
Oh, yeah, Kongu. Yeah. He didn't get picked yet?
No.
We can go with Kongu here.
He's a good Celtic. Okay. There's our 2020 NBA Redraft. Perfect. With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Redraft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards.
With the second overall pick, the Golden State Warriors select Tyrese Halliburton.
With the third overall pick, the Charlotte Hornets take LaMelo Ball.
With the fourth overall pick, the Chicago Bulls select Tyrese Maxey.
This was you, but I'll just do it.
No, I can do it.
Okay.
With the fifth overall pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers take Desmond Bane.
With the sixth overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks select Emmanuel Quickley.
With the seventh overall pick, the Detroit Pistons select Peyton Pritchard.
With the eighth overall pick, the New York Knicks take Denny Advia.
With the ninth overall pick, the Washington Wizards select Devin Vassell.
With the 10th overall pick, the Phoenix Suns select Jaden McPippen.
With the 11th overall pick, the San Antonio Spurs take Aaron Nesmith.
With the 12th overall pick, the Sacramento Kings will tap into the undrafted waters and select Najee Marshall.
With the 13th overall pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Isaiah Joe.
And with the 14th and final pick in the redraft lottery, the Boston Celtics take Onyeka Okongwu.
Perfect, guys. Now, at this point of the show, we have one last topic to capitalize on, and we just want to talk about the contenders in the NBA at the halfway point of the season. We kind of know who is what. So I think we all are going to give our top 5 contenders list, right? So
yep.
Okay, how about River? You start with your list.
Okay, it's in my notes. Don't know where my notes is. It's coming. Don't wait. Here we go. Zinger. So I kind of made my list, and I didn't really put it in order. I just kind of put Boston and then everybody under, because I do think Boston, for me, still feel like they're in a tier above, just because I do think the talent is overwhelming. I do think cohesiveness is overwhelming. I think their connectivity and just making the next pass, the three-point variance, is amazing. I also do think what they've shown us lately is if you can have 2 off nights from them in a playoff series where they're just bricking, you can maybe steal that series. And they probably won't have home court advantage if they play Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals, if that does be the matchup. So that's a series that can swing Cleveland's way if you get 2 bad shooting nights from that team and you have home court advantage. But for me, I have Boston. The other 4 teams, I have Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, and Oklahoma. I do think those are the 4 teams that are kind of in that contender conversation. I'll just run through them quickly. Cleveland, I think they've shown you that simplicity is the best thing in the league right now. Their offense is so simple, but it gets the job done. They're able to get shooters open. They run heavily off their 2 guards, running the pick and roll, getting everybody in space. They have guys like Mobley and Allen who, in the short roll, can make the next pass, can make the next decision. And they've been able to read defenses, how defenses have been playing them. And I love the real addition that I love with Kenny Atkinson is the fact that this team, when they're playing defense, the switch that Kenny makes when he runs into those zones, when he has a small lineup, or when he goes man to man, he has so many, ways that he breaks teams down with his defensive scheme in terms of just changing it up, mixing it up. I thought that was really the dope part of this team. But that's Cleveland. They've been one of the best teams in the league. If you have all 4 guys on fire, this team is a real threat. for Dallas, I think Dallas really right now is just unhealthy, but they have the talent to go far. They have the defensive scheme. They have the 2 stars in Luka and Kyrie, and I think they have the complementary role players. I think they can play any style regardless of what you want, and I think that's going to bode well for them. For OKC, it's really just SGA. And what are we going to see from this team healthy? This team, we really haven't got to see them healthy, which in turn has kind of hindered their half-court offense, was kind of middle of the pack. And outside of SGA, they don't have much real creation. But I think SGA is good enough. I think the defense causes a shit ton of wreck in the half court, and it causes turnovers, and it also can cause offenses to kind of panic. And then that's what get OKC fire. And then Denver. I think Denver started to figure it out with the Russ lineups, with the Joker and Jamal Murray starting to find his stride. And
how about Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, he's been good. And if you can find your stride with Jamal Murray, this team is legit.
James, I want to go last. I want to hear what your top 5 is first.
I'm trying to find where I put my top 5.
No worries.
Yeah, so Riv, I thought you made some good points. I think OKC is too low, personally. I understand the continuity and things of that nature, but I still really believe that this is the deepest team in the West, and I think nobody in the West is that. I don't think a ton compare. You know what? I'm gonna pull. I don't know where I had a top 5 list. I swear to Christmas, but I'm just gonna go list it. All right. So number 1, I also have the Boston Celtics. They have the ethos of winning the championship last year, and I think when push comes to shove, while they are, you can say, volatile with the 3-point shot making, I do think if they're healthy and Tatum and Brown 3-level scorers, I think we've seen it last year, they can figure it out. And I think Peyton Pritchard is going to be a bigger player this postseason than he was last year, which is another additional weapon. Number 2, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best guard in basketball right now. Just the way he's getting to the rim at will, the efficiency, the playmaking, being a star at that usage, also being a help on defense is really impressive. And I think J-Dub in the playoffs, bad playoff run last year, but I think he is that secondary creator. And they're so deep. They're so synergized. Their defense is so great. Yeah. I think they're contenders. Number 3, Cleveland. I think Cleveland's bench has really surprised me. They're way deeper than I expected with Ty Jerome's development. Obviously, Dean Wade's playing very well. Isaac Okoro, he's a piece, and you can go on and on about that bench. Their zone defense is suffocating. Surprising, they're only like the number 9 defense right now, so that's a little surprising. But the question for me is honestly, do they have a 1A on a championship team? Is Donovan Mitchell a 1A or is he a 1B? And that's going to be the question. Number 4, I still have the Dallas Mavericks. They're injured right now. They're battling injuries, but we've seen when this team is healthy and synergized, especially in the second half of last year, they're terrifying, and they have the best half-court offense in the NBA when they're healthy, you can argue. So that's number 4. And number 5, you know what? Riv, I might make your day. I really might make your day on this one.
I'm going to make his day too. So
number 5, I'm going to have the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yep.
There you go. So Memphis, the half-court offense has really improved. Their defense is great. They have you can argue they have the deepest core of contributing young players in the league. The question is, can Ja Morant also be a 1A? Same question as Donovan Mitchell. But Ja's efficiency quietly has been really down this year, like lower than Jalen Green's efficiency. So he needs to really pick that up. And do they have the top-end talent to win titles? That's going to be the question. But they're so deep and they defend so well. And they have one of the very deepest young cores in the league, no question.
Absolutely. Now, I like that list quite a lot. I like his list more than yours, Riff. And the reason why is because I have the Oklahoma City Thunder number 1. When Shaq comes back, I believe this team will get even better.
I didn't have mine in order, brother.
I know. But you had the Celtics in order. The Celtics were in order number 1. They're on tier. I don't view it the same exact way as you. Now, my top 5 contenders right now, 2 months, I guess you could say 3 months into the 2025 NBA season. Number 5, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. They're a team that's starting to get a little bit more healthy. Desmond Bane's been playing better in the second half, and quite frankly, this is the best half-court offense they've had with Ja Morant. I really do believe a Jaren Jackson taking some steps forward in his offensive game, and then the complementary play of Wells, Aldama, Laravia, Pippen. They have the optionality to make a consolidation piece to get yourself an upgrade off of Marcus Smart because he's been out. And then I look at Ja Morant in the playoffs, and I believe that he will rebound and play a lot closer to what we saw before that Lakers series 2 years ago. Number 4, I have the Denver Nuggets. They have a clear 8-man rotation with not only Jamal Murray playing his best basketball, dropping 45 on 26 shots versus the Mavericks. He played great versus the Heat. He's quite frankly starting to get back on track as of late. And I believe part of what's helped him get there is Russell Westbrook playing so well, relatively mistake-free, because him and Nikola Jokic have found some synergy. And I think early in the season, we saw him have to adjust into a brand new motion-heavy system, but the Nuggets have figured out how to utilize Russ. And I believe with Aaron Gordon coming back, this team is not getting the same AG they got 2 years ago in that playoff run, but he is better than what they had behind him. They're 9-4 since he returned. He missed a little bit more time. AG is healthy. This is a team that can go to the conference finals. Number 3, I've got to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Until they show me they can beat the Celtics in a 7-game series, I'm going to give them preferential treatment to the team that just had one of the most dominant finals performances we've seen without their third best player in Kristaps Porzingis for half that run. But I really just want to kind of highlight that the Cavaliers this year are a contender to me. And in past years, they felt like a pseudo contender, a tier 2 contender. But this team has taken a step forward, and the main reason why is Kenny Atkinson. Number 2, I have the Celtics. I really look at maybe that championship hangover being a potential uncertain question because we see so often it's a lot easier to repeat said than done. But the reality is very few teams have been able to do it, especially since the Warriors. And I do believe that the Oklahoma City Thunder have gained a lot of experience in this last year, and they've always been ahead of schedule. And the same way last year they exceeded expectations, I believe this year when you get back a healthy Chet with Isaiah Hartenstein, their defense will be too formidable on the front line for teams to be able to consistently beat them and break them down. They have too much size. They have an MVP, top 2 MVP candidate between him and Jokic. And then I want to really say this. There's only one all-star in this team to me right now. I don't know if Jalen Williams is an all-star, maybe a replacement. But I know that this year he will be better in the postseason, and the second half of the season will be strong. So I've got the Thunder 1, the Cavalier. I mixed that up. I've got the Thunder 1, Celtics 2, Cavaliers 3, Nuggets 4. I've got the Grizzlies rounding out number 5. By the way, Grizzlies have a top 5 offense, top 5 defense, and a top 5 net rating. This team is legit.
Yeah, I love the Grizzlies love. I love the attention that you guys gave them. My only hesitancy with them is, at moments where if you stop them from getting down the transition, we've seen them struggle mightily in that when they can't get out and run. You mentioned John Morant's efficiency. It's definitely been of multiple things of not getting a good whistle, with also settling a lot with the jump shot, trying to keep defenses honest, trying to get more well-rounded, which I think he needs to, and because the jumper needs to be, whether it's a mid-range or floor, it needs to be something that he has to go to his toolbox for. Yeah, but with Memphis, it's just about, how healthy, who is going to be their 10-man lineup, their 9-man lineup, their 8-man lineup when they're healthy. Like, when is Vince Williams coming back, Gigi Jackson, them boys? Like, once they're healthy, we really start to see this team in full form. But I love the Grizzlies, love. I really do. And I just think, not having Dallas up there is nuts. I didn't hear Dallas from you guys.
I did.
Not with John. So it was John. I didn't hear Dallas from John. I think that's a little crazy, but they're unhealthy. So I guess that's your caveat right now.
Mm-hmm. I would say that with a healthy Luka, that they would easily be in that 5 spot above the Grizzlies and maybe even above the Nuggets. But of course, with the injuries, I would definitely have them around like 6 to 8.
That's fair.
Particularly with Luka. So
honestly, Minnesota also has to keep shooting the way they have the last few weeks to have them top 5 for me as well. Like, Dante, he's all the way back.
Let it go.
I'm just trolling. But no, I want us, before we end the show, just remind everybody of our list. So for me, I had the Celtics number 1. I had the Thunder number 2, the Cleveland Cavaliers 3, the Dallas Mavericks 4, and Memphis Grizzlies 5. Rev, you want to give your list?
Yep. For me, I had Boston in 1. I OKC at 2, Dallas at 3, Cavs 4, Denver 5.
Awesome. My list, I'll say it one more time. I had the Oklahoma City Thunder topping the Celtics number 1, Boston at number 2, Cleveland Cavaliers lowering a little bit based off of their historic start, but still an amazing season at 3. Number 4, I've got the Nuggets starting to heat up at the right time. They've got the best player in the world. I think that's the most important thing with them. And then lastly, at 5, I've got the Memphis Grizzlies.
So we all have kind of the same 6 or so teams, which shows that the NBA is really starting to categorize itself properly. So I think that's a good way to end the show, guys. So is there anything you guys want to say before we close this thing out?
Where would Houston be in this one?
They would
7 or
be
8?
7. In that 6 to 8, I'd have the Mavericks, the Rockets, and the Clippers. With Kawhi coming back, their defense and the way they've been playing, I've had half the Clippers in that last spot, above the Knicks and above the Bucks. So I got a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Might have been wrong about these Los Angeles Clippers because I said coming in the year they missed the playoffs and that they're the most overrated team in the West because I was like, the West is so deep, they're gonna have too many injuries and they're too old of a team. That was mainly my logic, but Kawhi Leonard shook off a lot of rust. Their defense is exceptional, and I think they can be a really interesting playoff team this year.
Awesome. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens as we approach the deadline, some of the injury factors that have really affected the season as well, especially with Luka. I think that's the biggest X factor in this entire conversation. But that's going to do it for episode 11 of Objectively Biased. We super appreciate everybody for listening. Let us know what you think of our 2025 NBA mock draft and 2020 NBA redraft. It's crazy that 2020 was 5 years ago now, but that's nuts actually. But okay, guys, thank you very much once again, and we'll see you next time.